All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to another installment of the Isolated Literary Society presents Cowboy Feng's Space Bar and Grille. I hope that everyone is having a good day. Hope everyone's relatively safe and sane. Exciting news. Last night after finishing the stream, I did the thing that I suggested that I should do, which was I made a playlist of all the songs that have been mentioned in the book so far. I meant to put it in the description, but I totally forgot before I launched the video. Now that I've started it, I can't edit the description, but I will afterwards. Anyway, I posted the link on Twitter, and it's in my YouTube playlists, so just go in there and check it out. Quite a lot of songs have already been mentioned. I did find that one other person a few years ago did make a YouTube playlist for the songs in the book, but he only did the songs that were the quoted at the beginning of the chapters. He didn't do any of the other songs that are mentioned. I wanted to do all of them because I'm like that. So I decided, yeah, I'll make my own. Plus, I did not agree with some of his choices. It's like, well, look, if you want to pick the Grateful Dead version of Peggy-O, that's between you and your God. That's not my choice. Anyway, hello, Savvy. Hello, Michelle. Thank you for being so punctual. My sister notified me that she's still behind. Was not able to get caught up, so she will not be joining us today. Anyway, yeah, just doing this thing where I talk for a second to give people a chance to get their notifications and come to the... Oh, Savvy was early again. I don't know, maybe I should just move it back to 6. I don't know. I don't want to... I moved it to 6:30 pretty much on the strength of, my sister was having a hard time making it. But now she's having a hard time keeping up, so... I don't know. There's no perfect time. But anyway. Indeed. Well, if you ever fall asleep during the stream, Savvy, you can always go the next day and listen to the video. And luckily, it's almost the weekend, so you always have the weekend to catch up if you fall behind. So, anywho, I think that's all of the chitter chatter and housekeeping that we have for today. So, hey, Pepper, are you going to come sit up on the couch with me now that you threw up on your box and it's all gross and you can't hang out there anymore?
I know. You ruined your brand new spot.
I know. It was a perfectly good box, too. I was just thinking, maybe I'll break that down and save it. It's a good size for, books, heavy things when you're moving.
Oh, yeah. It is a good book box.
Nope. Not anymore.
Now it's a barf box.
Yeah. Bad job, Pepper. Yes, indeed. Puddle of doom in the box. A friend of mine, Nathaniel Johnstone, wrote a song on that subject about cats leaving little puddles of doom around the house and how unpleasant it is to discover one not with your eyes but with your feet.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
It's a mildly traumatizing song if you've ever had that experience, but otherwise it's very funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess let's get into it. All right, we were in the middle of chapter 5. All right. I'm losing track of the chapter numbers because this time I'm not numbering. With Emma, I was numbering all the videos by what chapters we read, but this time I was like, who cares? Just numbering the videos, part 1, part 2, part 3, etc. And stopping where I feel like it. All right, let's see. Okay, so we just went through the bit where Billy and Susie are going all over town and having wild adventures and drinking and dancing and doing drugs and just having a wild time. And he's kind of coming to terms with the fact that he's a little bit obsessed. All right. So we just had that. Just get you guys right in the right brain space. I was sitting in my favorite booth one Tuesday when Libby signals me Be cool if I could talk. When Libby signaled me over to her. She was wearing black jeans and a loose pink top that set off her pale skin and brown hair. I said, "What's up?" "Not much. The most important man in the world was here earlier." "Oh?" "Yeah, only I didn't realize he was the most important man in the world, so I was serving someone else who got here first, and I didn't jump fast enough." "Oh, did he complain?" "Yeah, I told him I was sorry I hadn't known he was the most important man in the world." I nodded. "So, what does the most important man in the world drink?" "Brandy and lemon sour." "Ah, well, there you have it." "Yeah, how about you? You look like you've got something on your mind." "Me? No." "You sure?" I turned away and surveyed the room. A middle-aged woman leaned back in her chair, coffee neglected, eyes closed, newspaper in her hand. A little girl of about 9 or 10 sat alone near the door in the restaurant, probably waiting for her parents. A fat guy in a gray suit and a gray hat with bushy white eyebrows sat alone near the door like an extra in a De Laurenti spy film. Suddenly I had a panic that I didn't know how to pronounce De Laurenti, but pretty sure that I do. I wondered if he had woman troubles. When all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like nails. Where did I hear that? There was a group of 4 business types, 3 men and 1 woman. I could now safely conclude that business wear in New Quebec, 61 years after its founding, involved light-colored sports coats with thin lapels, dark shirts in solid colors. Button-down was okay, but not mandatory. Slacks in light colors with a bit of a looser fit than I was used to. Ties that were narrow and fairly tame, and suede shoes. Hair, decreed the lords of fashion for this time and place, must be short in back and at the sides. It may be long in front, but must be carefully groomed. I turned back to Libby. "Yeah, I guess there's some stuff on my mind." "Like what?" "I think I've been doing too many drugs." If you think so, you probably have. So cut it out." "What else?" "Susie." "What about her?" "The other day she started in on me about how stupid it was to play Irish music, and she just really let me have it. She apologized the next day, said she was just in a bad mood. It bothered me how, I don't know, devastated I was. Does that make sense?" She put a toothpick in her mouth and stared at me. "Look, Pinhead, someone was killed in here. Someone tried to blow up the place. We don't know when a fucking nuclear bomb is going to fall on our heads. You're worried about some chickie not liking what song you play?" "Yeah," I said, "I am. That's what's worrying me." "So take your mind off her for a while and figure out what to do with the rest of it, Pinhead." "You got any ideas?" "No, we didn't tell the cops, though. Fred is trying to find out who delivered the boxes, and Rich and Eve are at the library studying up on the progress of the human race and nuclear war." "What's the rest of my band doing?" Libby made a crude gesture suggesting autoeroticism. "Got it," I said. "Yeah, I guess maybe it's time I do something." "Good," said Libby. "What?" "I don't know. I'll talk to Rich and Eve, see if they need any help." But they didn't. They'd already found the answers they were looking for. Dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If I ever take a drink during this I almost said podcast, during this stream, and don't spill a little bit on myself, I'll be shocked. Something about reading makes me ruins my depth perception. I don't know.
Yeah, that must be it.
Must be. Jamie pushed 2 tables together, and Fred placed chairs around them as Rich and I cleaned up after the last pair of customers of the night. Libby brought over a pitcher of something called plumbago phosphate and glasses for the bunch of us. We were in the tap room, I guess because it felt more intimate. Rich sat down with his back to the stage, and Eve at his right. I was on his left, with Libby next to me. Then Fred, Jamie at the other end of the table, Rose next to him, and Tom across from me. Jamie, Rose, Fred, Rich, and Tom were all smoking the local variety of tobacco-like weed. Smoke trailed away from the stage toward the intake duct above the bar like a gray down comforter. I wondered if it could be woven into a business suit. As we got settled, I found myself studying Eve. Whatever they'd found out, she had no doubt done most of the hard work just because she spoke all the languages and had that sort of mind. What sort of mind? Well, she hardly ever said a word, and when she did, you could barely hear her. She had a delightful laugh and beautiful blue eyes and a habit of going into sulks. Once, when a bunch of us had been sitting around shooting the breeze, I'd suddenly been almost overwhelmed by sorrow for everything and everyone we'd left behind. I hadn't said anything, and I'm sure my face didn't change. But Eve suddenly reached over and squeezed my hand. I've never understood how she did things like that. A mystery among mysteries. Rich said, I suppose you're wondering. No, never mind. Eve and I decided to do what we could. Eve and I decided to do what we could to predict when and if we were going to be hit by another bomb. He paused for effect. Jamie and I looked at each other, and Jamie rolled his eyes. Rich continued. We didn't exactly find out. We got sidetracked onto a study of the causes of the original war back home. I looked around to see if anyone was going to react badly to the mention of home, but everyone seemed to handle it all right. Rich turned to Eve, who said, Full-scale nuclear war has occurred 5 times in human history. I could barely hear her over the whir of the ventilation system. Jamie said, 5 times total? Eve nodded. The Earth, the Moon, Venus, Mars, and Galway around Proxima just before mass colonization started. Tom said, and we've been here for 3 of them. I said, pure coincidence. Everyone looked at me. I added, that was a joke. Rich said, the first war, the one on Earth, lasted about 8 years. That's a hell of a long time for a nuclear war, I said. He shrugged. It's measuring from when Cairo was hit until, well, there was nothing left. Yeah, I said. We looked at each other. I was remembering where I was when I heard about Cairo. I was in a hardware store getting some brackets to mount a speaker when I noticed everyone rushing over to the cash register and watching the little TV. And I asked someone, and I remember how weak my knees got. There was a guy next to me in a maroon raincoat. Yeah, it was May. And he sat down on the floor and shook his head. There was a lady who, well, never mind. Rich gave us a moment with our memories, then began speaking again. Oh, sorry. We started trying to find the causes of the war, and that's when things started to get weird. Once more, he paused. We couldn't find any. Well, I said, I wouldn't expect it to be that easy to conclude after all this time. No, he said, you don't understand. There was nothing. No speculation, no conflicting reports, no analyses tying it into psychological racial death wish, no blaming it on some country or another, no blaming it on space aliens or Elvis's ghost. Nothing. That, I suggested, is impossible. I know, said Rich. Fred said, methinks someone has been censoring lots and lots of things. Libby said, did you try newspapers at the time? Eve said, the library didn't have any. That seems weird, I said, with how easy information storage is. I know, said Rich. They have papers from before the war, but none from during. Either none of them escaped, or they've been deleted or hidden. Wow, said Rose. We're not done, said Rich. Great, said Jamie. Rich turned to him and started to say something, then thought better of it. Instead, he said, we started digging into the history of the resettlement, looking for patterns on what happened that led to the wars on the moon and Venus and Mars. That's when Eve found the really weird thing. I can hardly wait, I said under my breath. Libby heard me and flashed a grin. Eve said, there was a Russian book that traced a particular group of colonists. They were all very powerful, and they came from different parts of the world, and they settled on Luna, well, just about the time we were getting nuked in London. Really? I said. I hadn't known there was any colonization going on that early. We got blasted ahead 6 years, and I got the impression there hadn't been much actual settling there until 3 or 4 years before that. Fred shook his head. There wasn't, he said. Well, when was the book written? Asked Jamie. Fairly recently. So he could have gotten his dates wrong. I suppose. Let Eve go on, said Rich. We nodded. She said, this group of people. How big a group? Interrupted Jamie. About 30 families. Big families, or extended families. Perhaps as many as 1,000 people. All right. They immigrated to Venus as a group during the 2 weeks before Ivrium City was destroyed. Then they moved to Dockside Mars about 4 months before the war hit Venus. They left Mars during the 3 days before we were hit in Jerrysport. A good group of guessers, I said, or else they knew something the rest of the human race didn't know. Or, said Rich, they were the cause of the... Jamie interrupted Rich's thought by snorting quite loudly. Are you going to tell me that 1,000 people caused nuclear war on 5 worlds? Rich said, and then removed all traces of how they did it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Jamie made a sound with his lips, something like... Well, he wrote it P-F-F-F-F, but I feel like that's a good approximation.
Yes. It's always a fun sound to try to
Yeah.
spell.
I find that always very frustrating when you're trying to... Somebody makes a noise.
Yeah.
Something like or...
How do you write bilabial fixation?
I think there's some TV show, I think it was like Scrubs, where one time someone goes, and the captions for like the closed captioning said, like, name makes the I don't know noise. We're like, oh, how else are you going to describe that?
Right.
You could translate it as I don't know, but that would be inaccurate.
Yeah, that's very true.
Why does that noise mean I don't know? Oh, Rose said, why would they want to? Rich shrugged. Fred said, I don't see it. Eve said, they were all very rich and very powerful. I said, is there any evidence of it? Or is there any evidence at all? The timing, said Rich, the fact that they could do it, the lack of any other indications as to the cause. I shook my head. I don't buy it. Rich said, guess where they went after they left Mars? I shrugged. How should I... Wait, no. Rich said they spent some time on Galway around Proxima. Then they built a series of exploratory space starships, including the Winnipeg Dave. At the time this book was written, they were en route following her, about 6 colony ships and 3 years behind. Damn, I said. And these guys have been everywhere there's been a nuclear war. And there's been a nuclear war everywhere they've been? Yes, said Rich. And now they're here. Yes, said Rich. Wow, I said. I need whiskey, said Rose. There's more, said Rich. Great, said Jamie. What now? They have a name. A name, I said, like an organization? Yep, said Rich. The book gives the name in Russian, but Sasha Medved, said Eve, or something like that. We all took turns trying to pronounce it. I shook my head. Well, does it mean anything? Yeah, said Rich. Sugar bear, said Eve in her tiny little voice. Wow, somebody just commented, watching from Sandia National Laboratory, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Office of Scientific Research and Development, Gravitational Dilation Test Complex. Thank you. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's cool. No one has ever commented on one of my live streams and told me like where they're watching from. And certainly it's never, no one's ever told me they were watching from any sort of scientific research laboratory. Well, that's neat. Can you actually try moving the blinds, tilting them towards me? I feel like it's super dark in here.
Yeah, it's a little.
Usually we have too much light and we're trying to diffuse it, but now I feel like,
better?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay.
Now I feel like, no, we need to deflect it this way. I need my spotlight. There we go. Now I look
of
glowing.
Those reflective panels that photographers use.
Yes.
Just have them set up all around.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I need some of those like fancy, umbrellas that you put around a light.
Pepper, why are you not holding up the reflectors?
Yeah. Hey, Pepper. Why are you slacking up?
He's like, do you mind? I'm having a moment with my mouse.
Yeah. Once again, Pepper is ignoring me. Yes. All right. Well, we must keep reading for this scientist person. Now, for anyone else, another intermezzo. You'd better get born someplace else. Move along, get along, move along, get along. Go, move, shift. Move along, Ewan McCall. The Cicero cluster became a going concern around 550 years after the founding of Ibrium City. It consisted of some 14 star systems loosely centered around Cicero itself. It was founded by several thousand men and women who escaped from the destruction of the Triangle worlds by matters of days in some cases, hours in others. They never learned from whom they fled, yet they were harried, hounded, and hunted, until those who escaped landed on a friendly, if relatively lifeless world they called Cicero, after the captain of the Docksmith, the flag vessel of the makeshift fleet. The sun they called Marco, and over the course of several hundred years, they came to inhabit a belt of stars around it. For the first few scores of years, they were hiding from whoever had caused the destruction of the Triangle worlds. Later, they became stronger, but they still made no effort to reach anyone outside their own system, for fear their efforts at communication would be detected. When they finally got around to trying, nearly 100 years after the landing on Cicero, they couldn't reach anyone. Some thought this was because communication technology had changed sufficiently that no one was receiving what they were broadcasting. Others suspected that they were using faulty information on the location of the Earth, or incorrect algorithms on the other major systems, or incorrect algorithms to update their positions. No one seriously entertained the notion that the Earth and every other outpost of humanity had been destroyed, leaving only themselves and the enemy. When the Cicero cluster was discovered, or more probably, stumbled upon by the enemy, attempts to reach anyone who might help were intensified, even as hasty defenses were organized. The theory that advances in communication technology prevented contact became more popular, so efforts to find newer, better, and more unusual means of sending information across light years doubled and doubled again. They never did make contact, but in the course of trying, they learned how to break down matter and reassemble it at arbitrary points in space. It was while they were debating how to use this as a weapon and how to get the necessary amount of energy that it occurred to someone that an arbitrary point in space was also an arbitrary point in time. An entire world of discovery would open up if every habitation in the cluster wasn't reduced to rubble before they had the chance. More world building. Hello, Miller Philippe. Welcome to the stream. Chapter 6. If for some reason you just stumbled across this, we are reading Cowboy Feng Spacebar and Grille by Steven Brust. You can go back and listen to the previous chapters in the playlist that this video is in. Chapter 6. Seasons keep turning, all things must die. I just dropped over to ask you why. Been there before, Adam Stemple. And we're getting some more non-traditional songs as we go in. Sugar Bear, I repeated dumbly. Rich nodded. I need whiskey, said Rose. Tom stared at Rich. Libby and Fred looked at each other, back at Rich, at each other, at the rest of us, and back at Rich. Silence covered the room like a London fog, broken by occasional patches of cleared throats and shuffling feet. Well, that was dull, I said. Anyone have any interesting news? Fred cleared his throat. Well, yes, as a matter of fact. Great. I've been making some discreet calls, trying to find out who might have tampered with those cases of whiskey. And? Well, it seems the truck was sitting unattended here for several hours. Unlocked as well. Oh. On the other hand, our next-door neighbor, Mr. Carob of the appliance store, saw the driver and his assistant leaving the truck to get coffee or something, and then saw two other persons near it. Fred was the sort of person who could use persons in casual conversation. How is Mr. Carob at descriptions? I asked. Quite good, actually. Well, bless his heart. Did you have to explain why you were looking for them? I think he assumed some liquor was taken, and I saw no need to correct him on this. Bless your heart. Thank you. He took some notebook paper out of his pocket. The descriptions, he said. Rich already had his hand out. He chewed his beard and grunted as he studied them. Two men, both white, one about 5'8" or 9 with short red hair, walked with his shoulders hunched up. The other shorter, neat dark hair, mustache, his feet point out a bit when he walks. He really does have a good eye, I said. He does, said Rich. Excuse me. I don't recognize either one from the description, though. I'll ask around. Discreetly, I suggested. Well, what about the police? Said Rose. I shook my head. Whatever's going on, the local police are involved at some level, or there would be more of an investigation going on over the guy who was killed here. Not necessarily, said Fred. We don't know what kind of manpower they have, or even how serious a crime murder is on a colony like this. It can't be legal, said Libby. I studied the faces around me. They looked down at the table between my arms, then looked down at the table between my arms. I suspected they were realizing for the first time just how serious this was. I wondered how we'd all stand up to it. Fred wouldn't be shaken. I knew from talking to him that he'd been through worse. And Libby was like a rock. Rich? Eve? Jamie? Tom? I didn't know. Myself? We'll see. Big explosion, Libby was saying, and all our clothes fell off and the lights went out. What could we do? I said, what? Oh, nothing. You weren't listening. I sighed. I'm sorry, I was distracted. What were you saying? I was saying that you knew someone who knew something about Sugar Bear. What do you mean? Susie. Remember the first time you mentioned Sugar Bear to her? She practically got up and ran from the room. Oh, yeah, I thought I'd imagined that. You noticed it too, huh? Shit, said Libby. I'd have to be dead to miss it. You gonna ask her about it, Billy? Asked Jamie. I almost asked him if he had any idea what he was asking for, but there was really no point in it. Yeah, I'll be seeing her tomorrow. I caught Tom's eye. He stared at me for a moment, then looked away. The next day was Wednesday, and a cold breeze came walking through the streets, carrying a smell and a tingling on the skin that's winter saying, hi, I'll be there in a minute, okay? I have no great love for winter, but that first warning day of it is pleasant. It gives me a referent for the word brisk, and it makes me want to go put on a leather jacket and go walking through the streets with my girl's hands wrapped around my arm as she leans towards me for warmth, and my hands are in my pockets, and our hair goes whipping around. Yeah. The temperature was just above freezing, and I'm told that in New Quebec that was pretty much as cold as it ever got, which was nothing compared to Jerrysport with its incomplete terraforming, but pretty horrid compared to the tightly controlled conditions in Abrium City. I said nothing as we walked in toward the main drag, Susie's hands wrapped around my arm. Her hair was blown back off her face. There was a slight pout to her lips that might have been accomplished with lipstick. There were 2 bicycles in front of the bakery, probably the same bicycles, but I didn't see the kids. A middle-aged woman dragged groceries behind her in a small cart. A fat man sat on a wire chair outside an outdoor cafe. It was too cold for everyone else. Our conversation as we walked consists of, what should we eat? How about Cecil's? Fine. We didn't have to talk. There was plenty of light in Cecil's, so I could keep watching her. I never got tired of looking at her. The bones on her face were not so much perfect as perfect for her. The feline curve around the edges of her eyes, the hollow of her cheek, like a work of sculpture. I thought about what I had to ask her and grimaced. Cecil's was a small place with a lot of mirrors and chrome and a little bit of an antiseptic feeling. The food was good, though. We had something that tasted like oyster soup and almost was. Then she had a small salad, and I had something like beef and mushrooms and a sherry sauce. No complaints. She said, you're pretty quiet? I'm eating. She said, which meant, I don't believe you. I said, well, yeah. She said, what is it? I said, the bunch of us had a talk last night. Oh? We need to know what you know about Sugar Bear. Everything in her body seemed to tighten for a moment, and I was suddenly sure she was about to leave. But then that moment passed, and she just looked at me. Her eyes never left mine. She said, is that right? I wish I could describe the tone of voice she used for that. The cool, distant, uninterested tone that cut like a razor and raised welts like a whip. Maybe if I could describe it, you'd understand just how hard it was for me to continue the conversation. If you think this is a plea for sympathy, well, you got it, bub. We need to know, I repeated. Who is we? You know what I mean. No, I don't. Jamie, Rich, Eve, Tom, Rose. These people sent you to ask me. Not exactly. We need to know about Sugar Bear, and I know you know something about it. Maybe. It's important. To whom? To all of us. Maybe to everyone in New Quebec. Maybe to everyone in the world. Shit. And the scorn in her voice cut me again, raised more welts. Maybe I'm wrong about that, I said, struggling to keep my voice even. If so, you can tell me why. I need to know. What about me? What about you? Doesn't it matter what happens to me? What will happen to you? She turned her head from me and didn't say anything. I said, I don't understand. Would something happen to you if you told us about it? She didn't answer. I couldn't tell if her shoulders were shaking or not. The idea that I might be making her cry made me physically ill. I said, are you all right, babe? Is there something I can... Leave me alone, all right? She got up and walked out of the place. I sat there for 2 hours, hoping she'd come back. When she didn't, I went back to the apartment, but she wasn't there either. I sat up in the living room with my back against Tom's pillow for an hour or so. Then I went into my room and slept. Jamie woke me up the next morning with coffee with cream and sugar and cocoa. Thanks, I said, sitting up. He sat down against the wall opposite me. How did it go? It came back to me then. I studied the wall for a moment, just to see if there were any cracks in it. I cleared my throat and turned back to Jamie. Not well, I said. She got upset and took off. You didn't get an answer then? No, not yet anyway. Maybe after she's thought about it. Okay, he said, and left me to finish my coffee in peace. Later, the four of us plus Carrie trooped over to Feng's for breakfast. I had an omelet with green pepper and onions and sausage and garlic and cayenne with a side of French toast. I had local tea that was maybe a bit milder than the Irish breakfast I was used to. God damn it. He always talks about the most delicious food in the chapters where I haven't had time to eat dinner before reading.
It's quite evil.
Oh, God, now I want an omelet. I do have eggs.
Yeah.
I don't have any of the other stuff. I don't have green pepper or onions. I do have some scallions, but they're getting pretty.
Oh, you used up all your green pepper? Oh, green pepper. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was thinking onion.
Yeah, I do have some green onion left, but I know, Michelle. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you put cocoa in your coffee today. I forgot to add cocoa this morning. I woke up hard this morning, as I like to say, when it's like you just have to drag yourself awake. It's like regardless of how much sleep you've had, you find yourself just like, it takes forever to actually wake yourself up and drag yourself out of bed. It takes you an hour to like fully wake up.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those lately. Just have to start taking melatonin or something.
I used to have that too.
Yeah, Savvy, I highly recommend it if you drink coffee. Just a little cocoa powder. I mean, also like cocoa mix, like hot cocoa mix is also good, especially if you don't have creamer handy.
Yeah.
Because most hot cocoa mixes, the kind that are meant to be made with water, have powdered milk in them. So
Yeah.
hot tip. Well, I said as I was finishing up, we struck out with Susie. Now what? What was the problem? Asked Tom. She didn't want to tell me anything, I said. Tom said to Carrie, could you ask her? Her eyes grew very wide, and she shook her head. Guess not, I said. I could talk to her, said Jamie. I looked at him. Yeah, he could be pretty persuasive. I remembered once when he convinced me to start an Irish band with him and Rose and Tom. I said, if you think you can talk her into telling us something, go for it. I just don't want to get her any madder at me than she already is. Oh, yeah. If you already drink mochas predominantly, Savvy, then you've got the chocolate thing covered. If you're drinking drip coffee, cocoa powder, or like cocoa mix, very nice addition.
Yeah.
You are already getting the benefits of the magic of coffee and cocoa and chocolate together. This is so weird, said Carrie. It's like you're plotting against her. Not against her, I said, maybe too quickly, because the same thought had occurred to me. What? Said Tom. For her? We need to know what she knows, I said. I was joking, said Tom. What I'd like to do, said Jamie, is go stir up trouble somewhere till someone does something. Robert B. Parker, said Tom. I said, when you find a good writer, you stick with him. It'd work, said Jamie. Where do we do that? Said Tom. I don't know. We sat there a bit longer, then Jamie shrugged and stood up. I'll go talk to Susie. Good luck, I said. The rest of us sat and drank coffee and tea, saying very little for the better part of an hour. Then Fred came in, saw us, and headed straight over. He had a camera case slung over his shoulder and a manila folder in his hand. Any news? I asked him. As a matter of fact, yes, he said. I happened to see someone who matched one of the descriptions going into a building not far from here, so I took a picture of him, and Mr. Carib agreed that it's him. Oh, that's great, I said. What building? It's just a few doors down, he said. It's called the Bureau Théâtral de Nouveau Québec. That's the agency Susie works out of, said Carrie. Of course it is, I said. I talked to her, said Jamie, a few hours later, back at the apartment. I tried anyway. I waited, watching him, wondering how I'd react to the latest news on our end. Tom and Carrie were out watching TV or something at Carrie's, and Rose was in the back room running through scales on her fiddle. Jamie said, she doesn't think it's any of our business what she knows and doesn't feel like talking about it. Oh, I said, was she mad at you? He shook his head. Not as far as I could tell. She hardly looked at me, though. She just kept packing. My stomach did a 1.5 gainer into my small intestine. I said, packing? She said she was flying out to Durniabal for a week or so to get away from things. Oh, I said. My voice sounded very small in my own ears. When is she leaving? Today or tomorrow? Maybe I should walk over there. Jamie didn't answer. I said, she's pretty mad at me, isn't she? I don't know. Your name didn't come up. He didn't look at me when he said it. I said, oh. A moment later, I felt Jamie watching me and realized that my eyes were closed. I opened them. Jamie said, want to play a song or two? Not right now, I said. I think I'll take a walk. I've got news for you, but it'll wait. Are you sure you don't want company? Yeah, I'm sure. Thanks. I'll be back in a few. It took a long 15 minutes to get to Susie's apartment. She lived in a neighborhood of tree-lined streets, interrupted by little half-block parks and waiting pools and such. She lived in the bottom unit of a new-looking duplex with a roommate whom she never saw. That's the only way I can stand to have a roommate, she had explained. I could hear her voice when I thought about it. I remembered the inside as clean and orderly, with a couch, an entertainment console, a fiberwood table and chair set, and not much more. The furniture is all Annie's, she had explained. I don't have much of my own. I don't stay in one place long enough to keep much furniture. I heard her voice again. No one answered when I rang. I thought about camping on the doorstep and decided that would be pretty stupid, so I went back. Jamie had left. I sat in the living room, hauled out the banjo, and played through Sailor's Hornpipe and Arkansas Traveler, then settled down to work on Tennessee Rag for a while to see if I could finally get it clean. This required a great deal of concentration, leaving me no room to think about anything else. Hello, Michael. Sorry that you came late tonight. Apologies. It's always at 6:30 Pacific. I'm sorry if that's a bad time for you. I tried my best, but there is no time that's good for everyone. But welcome anyway. At least I believe you are one of the people who's read the book already, so you won't be lost. I don't know when you came in, but we're just dealing with the fallout of everyone finding out about Sugar Bear and Billy asking Susie about it. I've never bothered to look up how you actually pronounce that in Russian. I really should. Because he says like Sasha Medved, but he says, or something like it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I know that Medved is bear in Russian. That is a thing that I know for a fact. And I believe that Sasha or something like it would be sugar.
Definitely sounds right.
Right, yeah. However, I've never looked at how to actually say it.
Certainly there's a lot of osh sounds in Russian.
And saccharin as a word for something that is sweet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Italian. Anyway, sorry, it's very warm. It's totally overcast and gray, but weirdly warm in the apartment today. And our apartment usually is very cold, so
yeah,
I'm confused. You should really bring your fan out into the living room.
Oh.
Bring some of the cold air in as it cools down.
Oh yeah. Okay. I can
Anyway,
do that.
sorry.
After
back
the
back
stream.
to the book. Yeah, we will not turn the fan on during the stream. It is rather loud. Okay. Fun fact, if anybody didn't know, he's mentioned Arkansas Traveler twice now. And that is a song that is, it has lyrics, but it's also frequently done as an instrumental. I think it's originally an instrumental.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't know that.
many of you may already know it as the melody to I'm Bringing Home a Baby Bumblebee.
Oh, that's right.
Well, my mama be so proud of me.
Please don't sing the rest of it.
Yeah, that is definitely how I learned that melody as a kid. All right. That evening I went to a club where Les Sons Magiques were playing. I hoped Ceci might be there. She wasn't. Between sets, I spoke to her friend Christian, the lead guitarist. He confirmed that she'd gone out of town. I'm not sure why, he said. She seemed really weird when I talked to her. Do you know what's going on? I shook my head. I wish I did. He nodded, distracted. He put his feet up on a chair and sipped a beer. Are you guys playing tomorrow? I should hear you sometime, and we don't play again until Saturday. No, we got the weekend off. Want to get together and do some tunes? He gave me a sort of appraisal. That'd be fun, he said, surprising me. Feng's? How about my place? It's just off DuPont, toward the river. I gave him the address. We agreed to make it about noon, and I'd whip us up some food. It didn't occur to me until I was walking home that Christian was a friend of Susie's, and Susie was tied into Le Bureau, which meant I ought to be at least a little more suspicious of him. I sighed. I wasn't cut out for this kind of thing. Back home, I brought Jamie up to date about Susie's possible connection with Sugar Bear. Since Rose and Tom were there, I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I suggested practice. Since Rose and Tom were there and I couldn't think of anything else to do, I suggested practice. We tried to reconstruct a couple verses of the work of the Weavers. Oh, that's a typo I've never noticed before. This is the work of the Waivers. We tried to reconstruct a couple verses to the work of the Weavers, failed, and ended up learning Chesterfield's with 3-part harmonies, 4 if you count the fiddle. We slapped a typical, for us, opening on it. About 1/4 speed, drawn out, overdone, and very silly. That was fun, and we got it worked out pretty well, kicking into the fast part, until Rose announced that she didn't want to play fiddle on it. Why not? I asked, trying not to sound irritated. It doesn't need it. I think it sounds great, said Jamie. Tom was smoking a cigarette and staring at the ceiling. I said, what would you rather do? How about Bowron? I said, I think fiddle is better. I almost said, why don't you learn to play the fucking Bowron before you go wanting to play it on every song? But I didn't. Oh, shots fired! I feel seen. I bought a Bowron once. There were several songs by my old band that had Bowron on them. I did not actually know how to play Bowron, and I never properly learned. Finally, I stopped trying to put it in songs.
That's the Irish drum, right?
The shallow end, and you have a 2-headed stick called a tipper.
Yeah, I forgot what that was called. I get the person I learned it from pronounced it more like Boren.
Oh yeah,
but I'm sure they're. But I assumed it was the same thing.
Yes. I'm sure there are like regional pronunciations and such, but
also as an American person, so I mean.
Yes, based on the film The Boys from County Clare, that's where I have gotten my pronunciation of Bowron.
Yeah.
There's this great bit where those like hippies show up. You've seen that movie, right?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I thought you had. These like American hippies show up and they're like, yeah, we're super into folk music. We all play the bad Ron. It's great.
I know enough to know that it's not pronounced.
It's not the bad Ron. Anyway,
it's not the good Ron either.
I think this is I don't know. This is like maybe every time I've read this, I've thought, haha, shots fired. But I felt it more this time. I feel so seen.
Yes.
Jamie said, I agree with Billy, but he looked uncomfortable. Tom got up to take a walk. I don't know why that annoyed me, but it did. I decided I was developing another attitude problem. I said, let's can this till tomorrow, all right? Good idea, said Rose. Jamie shrugged and nodded, but looked unhappy. It was pretty late by then, and I was very tired, so I had no trouble falling asleep in spite of everything. Time for more food talk. Christian showed up 12:30 the next day. I made some egg salad with onion and celery and peppers and stuff, and he seemed to like it.
Should
Everyone,
have a content warning. Should have a content warning.
Right? It's like, warning, do not read while very hungry.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Aaron. Glad you made it. Okay, yes. Christian just showed up to the apartment to jam with Billy.
Bye.
Seeing Christian in a well-lit room made me realize that he was younger than I'd first thought. Oh boy. Sorry, that just reminded me of a certain young gentleman who asked me on a date at one of my band's shows, and then we went on the date and I went, oh, you look younger when not in a bar. I see, you're just very tall. Oops. His hair looked like he really, honest to God, never combed it, as opposed to those who spend hours every day making it look like they never comb it. His walk went with the hair, a relaxed shuffle accompanied by a bobbing, head-turning movement, as if he were checking out the area to see what fun could be had, the whole overlaid with a more or less permanent smile. He swore frequently and well in French and English. I got out my banjo, and he turned out, to my amazement, to know Cumberland blues. Well, if he knew that, he must know Steelin', right? And Mama tried? We had a great old time teaching each other songs and discovering which ones we both knew. I almost got him broken of the habit of running through blues progressions when he didn't have anything else to do. Not that I inherently object to blues progressions, you understand, but I'm fairly limited how much blues I want to play on the banjo.
It does seem like an odd choice for that just not the right type of genre to play on that instrument.
I mean, I've certainly heard banjo blues. I don't know how much of that has to do with the banjo as an instrument and how much of that is Billy's preference. Aaron, you might chime in. Is there something that is inherently difficult about playing the blues on banjo? Later we sat and talked, and I asked him questions about Susie, and he either evaded them or didn't know the answers. We got hungry, so I cooked something while he went out for beer. Tom and Carrie showed up, so I added some water and onions to the soup. After we ate, Tom and Christian and I played some more. When we'd exhausted all the music in the world, Christian crashed in the living room, right where the couch would have been if the place had been furnished. Aaron said yes. I assume that means yes, it's difficult to play the blues on banjo? I asked an either-or question, Aaron. Blues tends to be an E or A, and banjo tends to play G. Tenor banjos were early instruments for jazz and blues, so they play a little different. I think you meant jazz and blues, not jazz and banjo. So yeah, that's true. Tenor banjo is different. I know this fact.
Interesting. I did not. Thank you.
Now you know something.
Thank you, Aaron.
There's some instruments that the tenor or different variety is just like a different size. So it sounds different. It plays the same.
Yeah.
And there's some things that are totally different. Like baritone ukulele is tuned different.
Oh.
But a soprano, a concert, and a tenor ukulele are all tuned the same.
Wow. I didn't know that there were that many different ukuleles.
Oh, so many. You can also get a bass ukulele, but I mean,
honestly, I've only heard those terms applied to like brass instruments before.
Oh, yeah. I guess I don't know that much about the brass instrument, so I could be wrong about that. But
yeah, I mean that's yeah.
The next morning, I woke up to a knock on my bedroom door. I yelled, "Come in," and it turned out, to my surprise, to be Rich, looking worried. "I'm worried," said Rich. "I can see that," I said. "What?" "Never mind." I got up and threw some clothes on, trying to wake up. I stretched and said, "What is it?" "This whole business, I don't know, it's got you worried?" "Yeah." I rolled my eyes and gestured aimlessly around me. I can't for the life of me imagine why. We have reason to believe there's a conspiracy which probably succeeded in wiping out all life on Earth, from which disaster we were only saved by being in a restaurant that goes shooting around the galaxy, and in which someone was murdered, and which someone has tried to blow up, even though it didn't kill us outright, which, even if it didn't kill us outright, would leave us stranded here when the bombs come down, as they probably will within another month. That's all. Why should you be worried? When I turned back to him, he was shaking his head sadly. "For one thing," he said, "because someone has been following me." "Oh, great. That just figures, doesn't it?" "And for another, because you just told everything about us to whoever's been sitting there in the next room during the whole speech." "Did I hear myself referred to?" asked Christian from the door.
Hit.
"That's going to be another great day," I said. I can see that already. Chapter 7. Look at the coffin with golden handles. Isn't it grand, boys, to be bloody well dead? Isn't it grand, boys? Traditional. I resisted singing any of the other ones, but
Yes.
I'm in a mood.
Mhm.
Excuse me. I said, would you believe we were just kidding? Right, I said. Let's find some breakfast, said Christian. I'll go along with that, said Rich, and we can keep an eye out for whoever is following me. Right, I'd forgotten that. Are you sure someone was? Yes. Then he wasn't very good. Should I be insulted? No. All right, where's Eve? The library. Of course. I finished my morning business, and we went out in search of adventure and breakfast, not necessarily in that order. We walked, or rather strolled, along Leduc, with its wide bicycle paths and dwarf maple trees, toward Feng's. Christian was in the middle between Rich and me. He said, so, is that all really true? Is what true? I said. Heh. Well, I said after a moment, I guess you can believe as much of it as you want to. Oh, that's some shit, said Christian. I sighed. Look, I'm sorry you overheard what you did, but it wasn't any part of my plan. I was tired. Forget it. Believe it. Or think we're nuts, but don't expect me to answer questions about it. He said, just tell me this. Does it have anything to do with why Susie left town? I winced. Probably. Or maybe only indirectly. I don't know. Half a block before we reached Feng's, we stopped. Rich pointed to a low brick building. I stopped, and the others stopped, and we studied it for a moment. The lettering on the small hand-painted sign said Le Bureau Théâtral du Nouveau Québec. Quebec. I believe that is how they say it in Quebec.
I believe so, yes.
In stylized script. It was an interesting building, all of an odd blue brick and only waist high above the ground. The roof formed a gentle arc, and the stairway down to the doorway had the same arc, smaller and in reverse. I guess it was an earth-sheltered building that was not embedded into a hill, and it gave the impression of a sort of quiet efficiency. So that's the plan, I said. What plan? Asked Rich. Susie's modeling agency, said Christian before I could. Oh, that's the place. Sorry. He stopped being able to read. So that's the place, I said. What place? Asked Rich. Susie's modeling agency, said Christian. Yeah, that all makes sense now. The door opened, and two women I didn't recognize came out, unlocked a pair of bicycles, and rode off up the street. I watched them carefully in case I might need to identify some portion of them in a police lineup later. The one on the left, said Rich. What about her? She's very tall. That's true, I said. Tall, repeated Christian. Is that what you call it? Yeah, Wait a minute. The door opened again, and a short, pinch-faced fellow came out, looked at us, turned, and went back inside. I said, is that? Yeah, said Rich. That's the guy who was following me. Oh, I said, actually, I was going to ask if he was one of the guys in the pictures Fred has. I've seen him before, I think with her. I haven't seen the pictures, said Rich. Neither have I. I guess we both ought to look at them, huh? What pictures? Said Christian. Never mind, I said. Asshole, suggested Christian sweetly. When we got to Feng's, which was just opening and already had a few people waiting for lunch, we left Christian at a table, grabbed Fred, and took him up to the pantry. Into the pantry. Hurry up, gentlemen, he said. There are customers. Right, I said. Pictures. He took a plain number 10 envelope from his back pocket, handed it to me, and was gone. We rejoined Christian and opened it. There were 2 snapshots in it, both taken, I think, from a good distance with a good telephoto lens. This guy, I said, I've met him. His name is Justin, and he's a friend of Carrie's. And he's the one who was following me, said Rich. Great. And I'm sure you recognize this guy, right? Yeah, we just saw him coming out of Le Bureau, Le Bureau, whatever it was. I thought he said that was the one who was following him. Maybe they're both following him. His name is Claude, said Christian. I don't know his last name. I said, why didn't you tell us before? You didn't ask. Don't make me kill you. He shrugged and smiled. I continued to look at him, considering. What is it? He said. I cleared my throat. I guess it isn't surprising that you know all those people. I mean, if you hang out with her, you'd know the same people. It's just that, you know, what? That this guy who knew so much about us might be on the side of whoever tried to blow up the place. Never mind, I said. Let's eat. After breakfast, which in my case involved scrambled eggs and hash browns, both including green pepper and onions, the eggs also involving participation by mushrooms, sausage, and paprika, Christian said, "So, you guys like aliens from another planet, right?" I said, "I never really thought about it that way before. Might be more accurate to say another time, though. Or maybe dimension. I like that. William Cavalier, traveler through dimensions." "Can I come along?" asked Christian. "Why?" I asked. "Well, if we're about to be nuked." "Oh, that's right. You heard that about that too, huh?" "Yeah." "Well, we could be lying, you know." "I don't think so." I shrugged. "Always room at Cowboy Feng's." A couple of coffees later, Christian took off to get a few extra sets of strings. Or so he claimed. "Should we follow him?" said Rich. "If he's with them, he'll expect us to. Do you know how to avoid being spotted?" "I don't." "I guess not." Rich and I put our feet up on the seats and drank coffee. I stared out the window. A head of red hair floated past above the far booth, and my heart leapt, but it wasn't her. I thought about having a drink and decided it would be a bad idea just then. "Something wrong, Billy?" "Nothing important." "What's important and what isn't? If it's important to you..." "Yeah, I know. Never mind. I think I'll go back home and play some banjo." "Suit yourself. Let me know if I can do anything." "I will." Since it was only half an hour out of the way, I walked by Susie's place and rang the bell, but no one answered. I think that's actually a good place to finish for the day. We get into some stuff in the next few pages. So yeah, I'm gonna save that for tomorrow. I think that'll be a good section of the story to end our week on. So I will wrap up for today with the introduction of Christian. Well, we met him earlier, but now he is becoming a character, not just someone who's been mentioned.
Great.
Briefly.
There is a distinction.
So that is it for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening. I hope you guys are all enjoying this. If you missed the introduction at the beginning of the video, I made a playlist on YouTube of all the songs that are quoted or mentioned in the book for fun, because I'm not spending enough time on this already. I just added the songs up to the point that we've read in the book, because that alone took like 3 hours. And the plan is I will add songs as we come across them, which made me realize how frequently songs are mentioned. At least this time he also meant one of them he mentioned is already on the list, Arkansas Traveler. So I'm going to have to add that one again. Check that out. I forgot to add the link to the description, but I will. There's a playlist though. Just go to my channel, go to playlists, and you will see it. And yeah, it's fun, actually. I really had a good time looking through the songs. Most of them I already knew. Several of them I didn't know. No Savvy, for some reason, Pepper has forsaken his mouse friend, and he is now curled up on the floor, just being adorable. Hold on. We'll do a quick Pepper update. Just lying on the floor being adorable, like cats do.
Yes.
Lying on newspaper we have on the floor because sometimes he does other things that cats do.
Yeah.
Anyway, the playlist was really fun. It was a lot of fun to go through and hear the songs that I hadn't heard before. Honestly, I'm surprised I never did this. I read this book roughly once a year. I can't believe I at no point decided to look up the songs that I wasn't already familiar with. But I did. And it was fun trying to find interesting and diverse recordings of the traditional ones. I, didn't want the whole playlist to be the Dubliners and the Clancys and that sort of thing. So I tried to make it diverse and get some interesting different takes on the songs. Include some people that I know and some people that I don't know. In fact, I discovered a new band that I am now kind of obsessed with. It's a Scottish folk duo called the Mad Ferret Band. Super into it. I was listening to their album while I was setting up for the stream today. I can't remember. Oh, for them, I did their version of Jock Stewart, also known as "I'm a Man You Don't Meet Every Day." Um, I'm not totally sure. In the book, he refers to the song as Jack Stewart, but I'm assuming that's what he meant. I tried looking to see if there were any folk songs called Jack Stewart, and I only found references to this song, which is usually called Jock Stewart. But I could see Americans singing it Jack, because Jock is not a name really in the U.S.
Yeah.
So anyway, go check out the playlist. I'm pretty pleased with the songs that I picked out. Some good ones in there. And I will keep adding the songs as we go. So hopefully I will see you all tomorrow, 6:30 Pacific, sharpish. Tomorrow, then we'll take the weekend off and be back on Monday as we do. I'm not playing a concert this weekend, and we'll be playing one next weekend. So I should be putting up a page for next weekend's stream sometime this weekend, and then you can do the set reminder thing. So you will be reminded. Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out the playlist. Check out links below for my music. Tips are accepted. If you are enjoying the reading, it doesn't hurt, like everything else in this capitalist society does. So that's it. Thanks everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.